The assumption is that, most Americans, the vast majority, would just say it's in the Constitution, it's done. And that is true to a degree. But when you start to ask them more specific questions, it's much murkier. So do you think this is part of the strategy that Donald Trump, if there is a strategy, is this part of it from Donald Trump to prey on that murkiness?
I think in large measure, this is a strategy that is driven by Stephen Miller, that is driven by this sense in the White House that they're in a lot of trouble. So they want to get back to something they're good at, which is the racial and ethnic animus game that defines a lot of this immigration rhetoric on their side. I do think that while you parse those numbers, if you started to see people inside the society, inside our culture, realizing what this could mean to many, many, many millions of Americans, the backlash would be extraordinary. And I do think that it's one of those sort of hypotheticals that's interesting to talk about. But when it started to affect real people, I think this would not. I think people would get back to the belief we've shared as a country for 150 years that if you're born here, you're here. You're an American.
Is it that Donald Trump just truly believes, Ashley, that if you are born here to parents that he doesn't want here, that you should not be an American citizen? I mean, is this just a foundational topic, a foundational belief for Donald Trump that we've seen now for more than 11 years, more than, the first actual campaign?
So I will say this is part of his overall and his team, and certainly Stephen Miller's maximalist strategy, which, as it's been repeatedly described to me, is you sort of push and you push and you push until you run up against a wall. And they have been heartened to find that they haven't hit as many walls as they would expect. And then when you hit a wall, you try to bulldoze over it. And of course, the courts have proven in this second term, oftentimes one of the last bulwarks. But this was, I believe, one of that about 100 executive orders Trump did on day one. So this was a priority. I will also just add that I am not entirely surprised to see those numbers, those public opinion numbers changing, in part because Donald Trump, going back to Katie, when you and I were both there in 2015, when he announced his candidacy for the first time, what got the most headlines was his demonization of immigrants. He sort of rose to prominence in that moment on the lie of birtherism about President Obama's birth certificate. So this has now been 12 years of him demonizing immigrants who are here in the country illegally. And there are moments when there is a backlash, when you see images of young children, as young as 4 or 5 locked up, when you see some of the behavior of ICE and those killings in Minnesota. But this anti-immigrant sentiment has been injected deliberately into the ether by Donald Trump, by Stephen Miller for more than a decade. Yeah, so it's not shocking to me that would be reflected in public sentiment.
I wonder if it's a cleaner way to message on the issue for him, because it is just arguments in front of a judge. It's not ICE agents, masked ICE and Border Patrol agents dragging people off the street. It's not protesters getting shot and killed by federal agents. Those images that have dragged down Donald Trump's numbers on immigration, because Americans are seeing what it looks like in practice to do the things that he had been campaigning for. But if this does get decided in his favor, and we were talking a little bit earlier with Mark Joseph Stern from Slate, who believes that ultimately Donald Trump's going to lose, but also Lisa Rubin, who wondered maybe not. If this does get decided in a way that changes birthright citizenship, Hamid, what is that going to do functionally? I mean, we've seen the images of Donald Trump trying to deport people. What sort of images will we see? What sort of stories will we hear if they roll back birthright citizenship?
Yeah, I mean, this would be obviously an unprecedented change to the immigration system, and really something that the Department of Homeland Security, along with the State Department and countless other agencies, would have to come up with a really robust plan as to how to actually carry through this executive order. I mean, there's some really serious logistics that have to go into place here. How do you go about proving the citizenship of your child? Where does it happen? Who authorizes it? All of these kind of really difficult questions will come to the federal agencies. And I think that if they do win this summer, I think that there will be a lot of work for, in particular, DHS.
Difficult logistics, certainly. There's also a question, Hamed, of whether this is part of a bigger effort to use this to do more than just end birthright citizenship for people who are coming over the border now, but to try to roll back others. And I mean, we've heard J.D. Vance talk about your American citizenship, your Americanness should be defined by how many graves and how far back they go in your local cemetery.
Yeah, I mean, this administration not only looking at birthright citizenship, but really trying to amp up and use the process of denaturalization more and more and broaden that effort and to really expand the scope of trying to revoke people's citizenship. That effort is really in its infancy right now. But I think, it's really part of this look by the administration to go back and see people's immigration records and whether they have the ability to remain in the United States.